Tim Cahill is regarded as one of Australia's greatest footballers of all time, a 5'10" heading machine with this iconic celebration. But his path to having a career in football wasn't so straightforward. From growing up in a rugby-crazed family and almost being convinced to take up the sport himself, to his family borrowing a loan just to send him to England to take part in trials. Welcome to Football Reminisce, and this is the incredible career story of Tim Cahill. Tim Filiga Cahill was born in Sydney, Australia to an English-born father of Irish descent and a Samoan mother. From an early age, he was exposed to sports, not just football, but rugby as well. Nearly all his cousins were rugby players, but he took an interest in football. He fell in love with the title-winning Everton teams of the 80s and absolutely loved Gary Lineker, but there were a couple of challenges though. One, the big-time difference between Australia and England. If Tim wanted to watch his favorite football league, he would have to stay up at crazy hours, sometimes up to 6 in the morning, just to view every single game. Now, let's be honest, not too many parents would let their 7-year-old stay up through the night, especially not on school days. Luckily for Cahill, his dad was among the minority. Being from the UK himself, he was passionate about the sport too, and often allowed him to stay awake and watch the games with him. 2. His cousins and rugby. During the weekends, his cousins would grab an oval-shaped ball and head out to enjoy themselves. Tim was faced with a predicament: stay home by himself, bored, and be seen as the boring cousin, or join them and have fun. Being a kid and not wanting to feel left out, he gave in to the pressure and played rugby with them. And of course, they tried to convince him to forget about football and focus on rugby. Tim's mother was never happy though. She always felt the sport was too dangerous and worried about her son playing with bigger and stronger kids. She ended up forcing her husband to ban Tim from playing rugby. So Cahill was eventually back to his first love, his true love: football. He played at his schools and soccer clubs up until the age of 15, when he joined the youth team of semi-professional club Sydney Olympic FC, and then Sydney United after that. Throughout those years, his love for football grew even more. He enjoyed watching the Premier League just like in the old days. Something was different though. This wasn't like 10 years before where Tim would stay up and just watch football. He understood the game more. He was obsessed. He saw this as a potential career, and his abilities on the pitch had become evident. His parents noticed this and tried to convince a couple of scouts to give their son a chance, and to their surprise, they actually phoned back and gave Tim an opportunity to trial with Millwall for 2 weeks. They would have to cover the expenses of sending Tim to England themselves. A huge sacrifice was needed. We had no choice financially. We could not afford to see him through his dreams, so we had to take a loan. We became debtors for years. They figured that this could be the only opportunity for their son to achieve his dream of playing in England, so they took a $10,000 loan. Off went Tim with a huge load of expectation on his back. He had to impress the scouts from day one, get himself a contract, and help his family back home. A family that was now very broke after putting all their hope in Tim. His younger brother had to stop school as there was no remaining money to pay his fees. Cahill arrived in England, rented a 1-bedroom, and started his trials. That was the best week in my life. Everything I touched hit the back of the net. Every move I made was just perfect. He was right. By the end of the trial period, 3 clubs wanted to sign him after an impressive couple of weeks: Millwall, a first division team, and a Premier League team. Surely he would choose the Premier League club, right? Wrong.
I want to sign for Millwall.
Despite everyone thinking he would choose the Premier League club, he ended up signing for Millwall. Millwall gave me my opportunity, and I want to repay them. Signing for the Premier League club would have helped his family clear the loan right away, but Tim did not forget which team gave him the opportunity in the first place. Cahill received a £5,000 signing-on fee, which he immediately sent back home to help with the repayment of the loan. He made his debut just before the end of the 97-98 season. Not the worst scenario. He now had 3 months of pre-season to settle in ahead of his first full campaign in England. Off the pitch, he was quiet, but on the pitch, he was powerful and aggressive as he tried to make a name for himself. He played 41 games in the 98-99 season and helped Millwall reach the 99 Football League Trophy final. He would often feature in the central midfield role, further forward as an attacking midfielder or as a second striker. This allowed him to make late runs into the box and get at the end of crosses. He was very durable during his Millwall days. Just take a look at the number of appearances he made between his first full season and his last season with the club. 41 games. 51 games, 48 games, 49 games, and 48 games once again. Incredible appearance numbers. As you may have noticed, one season is missing from that, the 2002-2003 season in which he suffered an injury and ended up playing only 11 games. According to him, this was a very important year in his career. Instead of lying down and feeling sorry for himself, this experience made him stronger. He was part of the Millwall teams that reached a record 93 points in the second division in 2000-2001, 2 playoff semi-finals in 3 years, and an FA Cup final in 2004, a cup run in which Cahill scored 3 goals, including the winning strike in the semis to secure a UEFA Cup spot for Millwall. Unfortunately, they came up against a mighty opponent in Manchester United and lost 3-0 in the final, but the experience at the Millennium Stadium was pivotal for team's career. We knew we wouldn't win the final. It was all about learning a thing or two from the Manchester United players. That ultimately turned out to be his last match for Millwall. 7 seasons with the club that gave him a chance. 7 years in which he grew from a boy to a man. 7 years of gaining experience as a top-flight professional. 7 years in which he managed to make his family proud. Not only had he repaid the loan and the faith his parents had in him, he had gone beyond that, including getting them a house of their own. 249 appearances, 56 goals. He had 100% repaid Millwall. Apart from one season, he pretty much did not miss a game for Millwall. The time for the next step had arrived though. Throughout the years, he had turned down approaches from Premier League and Championship clubs, remaining loyal to the Lions and waiting for the right time. Everton secured his services for just £1.5 million ahead of the 2004-2005 season. The fans weren't too sure about the player they were getting, and to add to the pressure, one of their top young talents, Wayne Rooney, left for Manchester United right after. Any doubts were quickly put to bed as team scored 11 Premier League goals to finish as the Toffees' top scorer. As a result, he was voted as the fans' player of the season as Everton finished 4th in the Premier League. Everton immediately extended his contract with increased wages after the impact he had on the club. In his second season, Everton were drawn against a very familiar opponent, Millwall, a special match for team. The script was set up perfectly for Cahill. After drawing 1-1 at Millwall, the replay took place at Goodison Park. Tied at 0-0, Cahill scored the winning goal with less than 20 minutes remaining, and of course he did not celebrate. I decided not to go mad and just pay my respects to the club that gave me my start in the game. To celebrate would have been a kick in the teeth. It's all about respect. As you can tell, he never forgot where he came from. The next season was a slight disappointment for Everton, finishing 11th. Team did manage to contribute 8 goals and 3 assists. That summer, he took part in Australia's World Cup campaign and
He doesn't get to this and the ball's going in! Australia score for the first time ever in the World Cup finals, and the name is Tim Cahill.
An unforgettable moment for Cahill and the Socceroos. He ended up scoring a brace in that win against Japan, and after a draw with Croatia, Australia progressed to the round of 16. He was amongst the top 50 in the Ballon d'Or list that year. Back at his club, he suffered a couple of injuries which limited his game time for the next 2 seasons. Playing 36 league games from a possible 76, 12 Premier League goals and 17 in all competitions wasn't a bad return considering the injury. When fit, he would be used as a utility player, playing in several positions and covering for the injured players. A good example of this was in the 2008-2009 season, where he played as a centre forward after injuries to all the recognized strikers. Arguably the most effective position was as an attacking midfielder. This allowed him to arrive late in the box and contribute to several goals. As mentioned earlier, he had a knack of scoring headers and out-jumping 6'4" defenders. More than half of his Everton goals were scored via his head. That puts him on a list that includes tall towering strikers like Peter Crouch, Duncan Ferguson and Christian Benteke. He was handed the captaincy in the 2009-2010 season after an injury to Phil Neville. He scored 10 goals that year, 90% of them headers. As you can tell, this wasn't luck. According to him, it was all about timing and positioning. I would target the weaker centre-back, study how quickly they jumped and how high they jumped, study the full-back and see where I could make my runs. He was once again involved in a World Cup, this time in South Africa. He would be sent off in the first game, miss the second game and score in the third game. In 2011, he endured his longest drought without a goal, 34 matches without finding the back of the net, so he only ended up with 12 goals between the 2010 and 2012 seasons. After 8 years with the Merseyside club, team decided it was time for a new challenge. So after 278 appearances for the Toffees, he was off to... That's right, the MLS with New York Red Bulls, joining the likes of Thierry Henry and Rafa Marquez. In his first full season with the club, he scored a goal after 8 seconds against Houston Dynamo, which at the time was the fastest strike in MLS history. He played a total of 72 matches for the Red Bulls before embarking on a mini world tour. China with Shanghai Shenhua and Hangzhou Greentown, Australia with Melbourne City, India with Jamshedpur FC. He even had time to return to Millwall for a few months. During all that, he helped the Red Bulls win a Supporters' Shield and helped Melbourne City win their first ever piece of silverware, the FFA Cup. He was also selected in 2 more World Cup squads, 2014 and 2018, and in the 2014 tournament he scored a goal that can widely be regarded as one of the best in World Cup history. After 21 years at the top level, Cahill announced his retirement in March of 2019. 706 club appearances, 171 goals, 108 caps for Australia including participation at 4 World Cups, 50 goals for his nation, a Ballon d'Or nominee, a FIFA Puskas nominee, and numerous other achievements. A legend at Millwall, a legend at Everton, and most importantly, a hero for Australian football. Even his rugby cousins are surely proud of his football career.